Hi everyone, this is Yana and you're watching Clean and Simple Die Cutting video series. In today's video, I'm going to show you two cards using frames, or I guess I should call them label dies from Spellbinders. When I started working on today's project, I had a completely different idea in mind, but as I was playing with my supplies, I ended up creating something very different. Either way, I hope you will enjoy my card and my today's video. So here I have the Petite Labels one set from Spellbinders with some very lovely label dies. There are two kinds of dies and three sizes of each, which allow you not only to create labels, but also to die cut some pretty fantastic frames as well. Now, to save time on my video, I have already pre-cut a bunch of those frames out of some leftover pieces of colored cardstock. I originally planned this as one of those utilize your leftover papers types of videos, but that didn't really work out. I wanted to create a colorful background mixing different types, colors, and sizes of the frames on a one-layer card, something very similar to what I have done for a card I shared previously, and I'll include a link to that so you can check it out if you want. But like I said before, this idea did not work out. Either the colors of the cardstock were too bright and didn't work well together, or maybe my mojo went for a walk and didn't come back. I don't really know. But instead, I used some of the frames you see here to create two other cards, and those I'm going to share with you today. Now, all of these frames were not only die cut, they were also embossed, and they do look very cool when combined together. I actually might give this background idea another try later. Now, I also have a few sheets of pattern paper. All of these came from the Notes and Things, a 6x6 pad from Crate Paper. There are some very pretty designs inside and very inspiring too. Now, as for the butterfly paper, I picked that out because I thought it would look cool inside one of the frames, you know, like a little framed butterfly piece. I didn't use it in the end, but I still wanted to share that idea with you. I've used those papers to cover the entire fronts of my cards, and those are an A2 top folding cards. So I simply adhered them and then used my scissors to trim the extra paper. One 6x6 sheet is more than enough for one card, plus I get some leftover which I can always keep and use later for some die cutting or some stamping. Now, before I move on to the actual card that I'm going to create today, I wanted to share the original idea with you. So I took one of the frames and heat embossed it with a clear embossing powder. I did that twice to achieve this nice glossy finish, and I'll show you how it's done at the end of the video in case you don't already know. Now, you can see the difference between the embossed and the non-embossed die cut. One is very shiny and the other one is just plain cardstock. Both are pretty, but I wanted to have something different for my card. I also wanted to point out that after you add the embossing powder to your manual embossing, you know, the one that you achieve with the help of a die cut, that manual embossing disappears a bit. So if you plan to add a few layers of embossing powder to your die cuts, it might be a good idea to skip the manual embossing part. So my original idea was to layer frames on my card front and arrange something similar to a frame wall. I wanted to have different colors and sizes and shapes there, but I didn't like how it was turning out, so I decided to work on something completely different. I grabbed another sheet of pattern paper and die cut one larger label using the same die. And I used it to create a backing or an insert for my frame. I really like that floral pattern and wanted to include it, some of it on my card. And having it inside of a black frame seemed like a very nice idea. So I then used my multi-matte medium and adhered my glossy frame on top of the label. I added a bit of the medium, spread it around with my finger, and then pressed the two pieces together. I put a clear block on top of it to apply some pressure. I then die cut a little arrow with a heart and a word U using some gray cardstock. I absolutely love these little arrows, and they seem to be such a great addition to just about any card. I have already shared another video using these dies to create a partial background, and you can check it out here. I also decided to add a few drops of ink to my card background, so I'm going to use these new Silk Luster inks from Spellbinders from the Celebrations line. You need to shake them well to mix the shimmer from the bottom of the bottle, so be sure to do that. And I'm going to get my Ranger Craft mat out to protect my work surface from any ink splatter. Now, to add drops of ink to my paper, I'm going to use a small paintbrush. Dip it in and then lightly tap it to add some little drops over my card. You can use the brush from the bottle, but it's going to give you slightly larger drops. And I wanted to have smaller drops of this silver ink, so I used a smaller brush from my stash. So I'm then going to add silver and then blue for some pop of color. For the blue, I did use a brush from the bottle, and you can see the difference in size of the drops. The blue ones are much larger. Now, the easiest way to add these drops is to hold your brush or your applicator at the end with one hand, place it parallel to your project, and lightly tap with a finger. Large brushes create large drops, and then small brushes create small drops. Easy to remember. Next, I decided I needed to add some thread behind the frame, so I wrapped white sewing thread around my fingers and adhered it to the back of my frame with the help of some glue dots. I then played with it with my fingers and made it look more irregular and pretty messy, as I didn't want to have just a circle there. Next, I placed some foam adhesive on the back and adhered it to the bottom right part of my card. I also added the little gray arrow and adhered the word U with foam adhesive, which I had to cut into smaller strips to hide behind the letters. I then grabbed the two smaller pieces, the label and the frame, and also covered them with clear embossing powder to create a glossy finish. I pressed the die cut onto the clear embossing ink pad with the help of a clear block, then added clear embossing powder, and then heat set it with my heat tool. You can also use colored embossing powder to change the color of your die cuts and also create a glossy finish. I needed to heat set 2 layers of embossing powder, as one layer only gave me this uneven result, which you can see here. I then once again used the multi-matte medium to adhere my frame and my label to the lower part of my card. The smaller die cut pieces curled up a bit from all the heat from the heat embossing, but by adhering them directly to my card base, I was able to flatten them out a bit. Next, I decided to add a few wood veneer stars from Studio Calico to my card, and to make them match my frames, I also needed to heat emboss them. So I grabbed a wooden stick, you know, the one that you get with rub-ons, added some adhesive to it, placed my stars on top. I had some smaller and some larger stars there, and then used my liquid embossing ink from Stimpandos to add clear sticky ink to the stars. You can use your embossing ink pad for this, but I find that this liquid ink from Stimpandos works a little bit better for me. It's easier, a little bit easier to handle. After I heat embossed them, I added them to my card and also rounded the corners using my yellow We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper and the 1/8 inch diameter. I really like that particular diameter as it's very small and it doesn't really show, although it's still there, and it creates a very nice finishing touch. Now, I also created a second card with a similar design. I used a different shape of the label and covered it with black embossing powder. Originally, this die cut frame was red, but by using black embossing powder, I was able to easily change the color of my die cut. So this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed my video and my experiments. And if you're looking for a list of supplies to create these cards, you can find it below in the video description or on my blog. Thank you so much for watching. And if you liked this video, please remember to click the thumbs ups and share this video with your friends. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.